Vroom, 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 vroom. Honk, honk. Get in, losers. We're going struggling. Vroom, 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 vroom. Hey guys, welcome to another Ride the Struggle Bus, where every well is an empty triangle. Today's video is another Where the Do I Play, and for those of you who are not familiar with this series, it's a new one that I've kicked off. The whole premise of this series is we have interesting middle games, and we want to figure out where do we play. And the games in question are sent in from members of my Discord server. So if that's something you're interested in doing, you can join and you can send questions yourself, and maybe I will turn those board states into videos, much like this one. It's an interesting video concept that I've been enjoying, and I think you guys have been enjoying as well. So I want to do a little bit more of it. But let me know if this is something that you do or don't want to see more of, and we'll go from there. Either way, I would like to thank you guys for watching these videos, and I'd like to thank my Patreon subscribers for supporting this channel. So with that intro out of the way, let's get into this very interesting board state. Okay, so here is the game in question. Our friend who sent this in was playing black this game. We're not going to go over the opening of the game to see how we got here. We have plenty of content out there that goes over what's doing Fuseki, but here we just really want to focus on the middle game and to really analyze one position and see what our plan is going to be. So it's black's turn here, and we want to come up with a plan so that we can win this game. And that will start, obviously, with what do we play here. So to go over the steps of what I look at in board positions like this when we're in the middle game, there are two main factors that I'm looking at, and there's one that's much more important than the other, and so that's where we're going to start. And that is, what are the strength of the groups on this board? Where are the strong groups and where are the weak groups? Because no matter what you want to do, if you've got weak groups, especially if you have multiple weak groups, you really have to fix that before anything else. And if you're strong and your opponent has weak groups, then that can change what your plan is going to be. So that's really where we need to start, and so that's where we're going to start. So it is black's turn. So I'm just going to label the groups so that we can discuss black's groups first. So we have A, then B, then C, then D, then E. So let's start with the simple ones. I would say that all three corners, the top left, the bottom right, and the top right, are all very strong. They are independently alive. They can't be attacked. They really can't be bullied. So that's really helpful because if a fight breaks out, you know you're not going to have to worry about those groups. And that's really what having a strong group means in terms of a strategy, is you know that when push comes to shove, if a fight breaks out, you don't have to worry about those groups. They are fine by themselves. You can rely on them to take care of themselves, and you can use them to bully other groups. That's not true when you have weak groups. So again, clear to see that groups B, C, and E, all very strong. Group D is close enough to see that I pretty much can consider this one group, but there is a lot of room in here. So D does have some weaknesses, right? If white plays something like M16, it's possible that this group can be under attack, except for the fact that it's against a weak white group, which we'll get into a bit. But the fact that it's directly next to a weak group means that it's much stronger because of that. So then we can look at group A. Is it weak? Is it strong? It's kind of somewhere in the middle. I wouldn't call this a strong group. I wouldn't call it a weak group. It's somewhere in the middle. It is very clearly black's weakest group, though. So if we're going to play a move to take care of our weakest group, this would be the area to play. So let's take a look at white now and relabel our groups. So for white, we're going to have group A, B, C, D, and E. And we can say F, but we can start here. This side group is okay. It definitely can be reduced, but should be okay enough. But this is a pretty there is a lot of room here, so we potentially have weakness here. So this is probably medium strength. Group A, clearly very strong. It's just like our corners. It's already alive. It can't be attacked. Same thing with Group E, especially now that D11 has been played. this group looks plenty strong. However, Group B is quite weak because it's leaning against a strong group, and it's pretty far away from this strong group. And then we've got the elephant in the room, which is Group D. It's a big group. It is surrounded by strong black stones. It's a weak group. This is an obvious target on this board, as is Group B. I would say that both of these are targets. Group D is the obvious target here. So that's the first thing we're going to look at, is what strong groups and weak groups are there on the board. So for me to relabel this now, I would say the interesting groups on this board are our A group and then B and C. So these two white groups are interesting because they're both weak, and then this black group's interesting because it's not the strongest. So we've determined that. The second thing I want to look at is, where are the potential points on this board? Where can we grow potential? Where can we reduce potential? And there are three main areas on this board in terms of growth potential. The largest being the bottom for white, and then we've got the top for black, and then we have this side for white. So these are kind of the areas that we're interested in. And we'll notice that one of them, the bottom, is next to two groups that we find interesting. So I think this is probably the most interesting part of the board, is the bottom here. And then also the top, because this is against the other weak group on the board. So black has a lot of potential to grow this out, and black has a lot of potential to reduce this in. So that's what I'm looking at on this board, is we've got three groups that aren't the strongest, and then we have these two main areas that either player can grow in. And so now the question comes, do we want to be aggressive right off the bat and go after one of the weak groups? Or do we want to strengthen our group first? If you are the aggressive player and you just want to attack now, there's nothing wrong with that because there are opportunities here. Remember though, when we attack, we want to make sure that we are gaining profit somewhere. So for me, the natural attack would be somewhere around K13, K14. If we play here, this is a clear attack on this white group because we now have taken this direction away for white to run. White can really only run down and kind of towards the center now. And while we're doing this, we are developing this area. So however many points this turns into, it'll be that much more now. So we are growing our potential. So this is an option. So let me take these off, and so we can put this as option A if we're attacking. Option B, if we're attacking, is we could play something like M3. Because again, this group here is right up against a very strong black group. And so really the only direction that this can develop is running this way. And so if we plop a stone here, that's right in their way. The issue for this one, though, is as the fight draws this way, again, our group isn't the strongest here, and white's group is fairly strong. So I'm not as much of a fan of this attack right now. I think this is an attack we would look at if we got strength for this left group first. But this is something to at least consider. So we are going to mark this as another move. So that's what we can do if we're looking for a direct attack. If we want to defend ourselves first before attacking, which is typically how I like to play, we would be looking at making this group stronger first, because it is our weakest group. Not to say it's weak, I'm just saying it is our weakest group. For me, the natural move on this board is to play this. And this is the first move that jumped out at me, and when it's all said and done, I'm pretty sure this is where I'm playing. And we'll go over what I see this turning into. But this is what I would be looking at to get some strength for this group, would be to play this Hane. And then probably the final move to go over is one that was pointed out to me by one of my teachers, and that is leaning on this group here. And so here, if we attach, the intent here is to get some strength here and to use that strength to radiate across the board, to get even more influence on this board, so that whichever group white chooses to fix, now we have a much stronger attack for the other group, or if white looks to fix with something here, now this comes with more teeth because as the fight moves this way, we happen to have a nice little wall there. So this is a more advanced concept. This is not something I would expect most of you to consider in your games. That's the type of move that I probably should be looking for, these nice leaning attacks to get some strength to then go attack another group. But I am going to highlight that as an option. Of course, we can also look at playing something like R10 to try to induce something here, but I would want more strength on the board before we did something like this, and I think there are bigger targets on the board, primarily this H13 group. That is the biggest target on this board. So you might be asking, well, if that's the biggest target, why are we playing H4? And I'll show you why I'm playing H4. So when we play H4, if white doesn't respond to this, the J3 Atari is going to be pretty painful. So we would expect white to play a move like this. White could double Hane here, which would be a mistake because when we get this, there's a cut that white needs to fix, and after white fixes it, now we can play a move like this, which is a much more severe attack on this group, because now the only direction this group can run is this way, and oh look, we just got some strength on the board in the direction that white is running. So this would be the plan that I would do in this game. This would be how I would play it out. Again, I would expect white to play a move like this, but I still think that this would be a successful attack. Again, we're not going to kill this group. That's never the goal here. You know, I'd probably be a little more reserved with the attack. And as white runs out, I would just be happy to get this essentially in Sente. You know, then we can look at this reduction. We can look at this reduction. We're still in complete control of this game. It's important to point out that black is ahead on this board, primarily because white has two weak groups and black only has one, and it's black's turn. So all of that just puts black in a really good position in this board. But it's still an interesting one to go over, and you know, there's lots of options on this board, including some others that I haven't gone over. But for me, this is what I would look at. Unfortunately for our friend chose to play b6 here, which is just in the wrong direction. It was good that they identified that this group needed a little bit of help, but this is just in the wrong direction. Anybody who's watched my bus rides or basics knows that this is too early for a second line move, and it just goes in the wrong direction. So again, I'm glad that they were able to identify that this was the weak group. I just think that if we're going to strengthen it, that this is the move to do. And while black is still ahead on this board, this is unfortunately where things, some compounding mistakes started to happen, and this is where black started to lose control. Black did ultimately lose this game, even though in this position, black is really well poised to win this one. But we know that Go is hard, and you and I have both lost plenty of games where we were further ahead than black is on this board, and then we look back and go, how could we possibly lost that? We were up by 20 points, and we were in complete control. Because Go is hard, and sometimes that just happens. Anyway, that is where I'm going to leave this one. I'm curious where you guys would play on this board and what would be the rationale for it. So leave that in the comments. Let me know where you would play and what your plan would be as black on this board. Anyway, thanks for coming for another Ride in the Struggle Bus where every wheel is an empty triangle. Have a good one, guys.